Hello, welcome to From Caracas. I'm Laura Prada. In this opportunity, we have a special guest. We are met by the Colombian professor, the historian, Medófilo Medina. He is an expert. He has investigated on the Bolivarian process in Venezuela, but also in Colombia, and how these two countries, these brotherly countries, have evolved through the teachings of the Bolivarian doctrine and the examples. So welcome, Professor, from Caracas.
Thank you.
From Angostura to the Great Colombia, how has that process been through the years to Colombia and to Venezuela?
In reality, the Angostura's path, in the case of Bolivar, it started before. It started in the Antilles, and I emphasize this because it is a continental path. The letter from Jamaica from 1815 is a reference, but the meeting between Bolivar and the President Petion is in Haiti. It is not only the comparisons of two historical figures, it is the meeting of two processes that are used to being forgotten. It is the meeting of liberation, the slavery liberation process from French colonies in Saint-Domingue, later Haiti, with the Hispanic American independence process. Then that's why we talk using a name that would be known after the independence of all Latin America and the Caribbean, with the support of that first Latin American revolution of black people from Haiti that started in 1791 and ended in 1804. First, the freedom of slaves is produced. That was the first revolution in the world made by slaves. It produced their liberation and independence of what would be called Haiti. Bolivar went in the expedition from Los Cayos to Guyana, Angostura, and there began this process that finished in the bridge of Boyacá on August 7th, 1819.
It's been many years after the countries that formed the Great Colombia and those who today make Latin America and the Caribbean. It's been a path they have followed, those steps and those ideals that Bolivar left through the years to what they've become, to what they have fought to become free and to become independent. What can we have seen from there?
As children of the same father, the Bolivarian republics had had a history like any family. Some descendants choose a way, others go through another one. It is changeable. Any country has just followed a lane. So far, unfortunately, we are not, let's say, in this present moment, in the best conditions to commemorate in fraternity this historical fact that after the Battle of the Bridge of Boyacá, the structure of the Colombia was possible, because it was called Colombia. Afterwards, the term Great Colombia was used, and we have current realities very dissimilar. We have a curse we have had since 1999 on the power of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela with the constitution of the President Chavez and the Venezuelan people, obviously the Bolivarian constitution. A path was started from the statal management of deep reforms, deep social transformations, of ambitious retributions of the income, from the incorporation of many people that wouldn't be integrated. What's more, people that had been excluded by the so-called Fourth Republic, they had the opportunity to be incorporated as citizens, being incorporated political, economical, social, and culturally. That is the great achievement of the Bolivarian Revolution. Nowadays, we are in a big crisis.
Before we continue talking about Venezuela, because we want to touch it a little bit later on, when you started explaining to us, you talk about Haiti and the independence movement and the liberation. It was a slave who promoted that independence in Haiti, and we've seen that that example was taken to Bolivar took that example and brought it to Latin America, and the processes he pushed forward. But we've seen two topics that have been essential were essential in that fight and continue today to be fundamental, which are the owning the landowners, and also to stop oligarchies from controlling those lands. How have that evolved?
Since his arrival to Margarita and the Carúpanos beaches, Bolivar proclaimed, after the expedition of the Cayos in 1815, the slaves' freedom. That was an honor, not only because Petion had acquired it in a certain way, but it also obeyed the Bolivar's conceptions. Furthermore, there was a conception in the Liberator of agrarian reforms that began to achieve with the war combatant officers and soldiers, due to salaries weren't enough. With land, this disappeared. It wasn't achieved. And I think with the 49 enabling laws in 2001, when a democratic agrarian reform was possible, focused on food security, that is one of the four great laws that made possible the ennobling law. The others about liquid hydrocarbons, aquaculture and fishing, and many others. It already marked the realization of reforms for the revolution, and it was a manner for indicating that this cultural and political project by Chavez, from being a Bolivarian cult to become the Bolivar's figure in an acting presence. The presence recovered by and for the people. It wouldn't stay as a discourse, but incarnate in actions. Well, that didn't naturally cause the charm of the bourgeoisie. And of course, the application of the liquid hydrocarbons didn't make happy the United States. And naturally, that's part of the crisis in the sense of the economic war. Sanctions are a decisive component of the crisis.
There are some essential points on the Angostura Congress documents made by Bolivar, and he talked about that ignorant people were blind people. Also that it was a need to defend the homeland, that equality and freedom was necessary, and also started talking about the need of making laws that instructed, that kept the norms, the codes that the society should follow. How are we able to see that today in Venezuela, in Colombia? How those points, some of those points shown on the Angostura Congress are followed today?
In the case of Colombia, I refer to one central thing. As you know well, we are on the process of peace. That has to be placed in quotation marks because peace has suffered all types of injuries, swipes, and many times it is thought if we can talk about a post-conflict when there is a lethal lack of social leaders, ex-combatants that are being killed by adversaries of that agreement. In that country, the problem with lands has been key along the 2 centuries of existence as a republic. I frequently say that after all the effort for the agrarian reforms in Colombia, what has been reinforced, the true history, is the story of the counter-agrarian reform, telling that the land hasn't been distributed, and that is in contrast to the Venezuela after 1999. Now, the desirable is that principle associated to the law for lands in Venezuela is achieved. For example, food security, that Venezuela particularly produces in matters of food because it has conditions to produce all the country needs. And in a certain manner, the legal basis and the political will were put on those 49 enabling laws. And we will have to still fight to make that element achieved precisely.
I told you to explain a little bit about this case in Venezuela and Colombia, but specifically in Colombia, how it's affecting the implementation of the peace agreements signed in 2016 in Havana, and how that contradicts everything written on the agreement, because we are seeing today social leaders, more than 100 social leaders being killed in Colombia due to the fact of the land, because the government is not in the position to let them work the land, to make it produce, so they are also benefit from that wealth that the earth gives to them.
Continue with a big attention the process of peace and negotiation in Colombia, even from its early secret stage in 2010. The public stage started in 2012, and a year passed, and I was surprised due to the first agreement was for an integral agrarian reform, for an integral rural law, and that agreement was very well prepared. It specified the various points, and nowadays it is one of the elements that hasn't been achieved. The various elements that this law keeps, and by reaching them, they would express or define rather a new integral agrarian reform. They haven't been achieved. These leaders, among the social leaders who are falling, have been murdered or some of them who have been in front of the absolutely legal movement because it is about to vindicate the previously signed in Havana in relation to recovery of lands. The last victim I saw, surely in a video that has gone around the world, it was a child that screams kicking the ground in front of the corpse of her mother. Nia was a woman who was fighting in a group in Cordoba for the recovery of land. It is still a promise and still are attack objects. The transitional justice with the justice special jurisdiction, the rights, the recognition of victims' rights, all in all, and above all, the most regrettable and abominable of this is the lack of awareness about agreements of peace that starts with the Duque's government, which obeys the dictates of the Senator Uribe. Those are political forces contrary to peace. They aren't the majority of the country, but they have a power that comes from the power that have the horse owners, ranchers, landowners, and they are who are sabotaging the peace. However, I am optimist, and I say peace is a fact, because I want to apply an aphorism from Hegel, the philosopher who said, one must look at the present misery, the rose of reason.
How have, that's in Colombia, and we can see that that power, that enriched oligarchy is the one that continues today, despite Bolivar's efforts, stopping and pressuring for that those who are less benefit, work that land, benefit from the wealth it gives, and we've seen it today, and with that example, with that clear and very clarifying images that you explained to us. But in Venezuela, we have seen other part of those legacy from Bolivar, the part of the Constitution and to have it in law, the need to protect the land, the need that the people have access to the land, and also to protect them, to make people to make the people the way that they can follow to be free, to have preparation, to study, to live freely. How we are seeing it that today in that Venezuela that is facing so many threats, and when we are seeing also Colombia, that brotherly nation that both carried the legacy from Bolivar.
In Colombia, the established media, I don't talk about, for instance, the social networks, since the beginning, even since the elections of 1997-1998, the Bolivarian forces were looked with mistrust and were presented with antagonism. So much so that my first book is titled The Chosen President Chavez. I wrote it when an editor told me, look, in front of this propaganda that is so in contrast to the Bolivarian process that started, there will be someone who wants to write about what's happening in Venezuela. Me, who was developing a project since many time investigation, a comparison between Colombia and Venezuela from 1830 until current days. Well, current days at that date, I told, if you give me some support, because first I have to go and stay a time in Venezuela, and I produce. I take charge of the book, and in effect, the book came out with the title I told you, that would obey to that need to clarify what really happened. Because media, and it has been a story that has continued and today it is more exasperated, has been very contrary to Venezuela, to the Bolivarian process. Then I told, from those positions of somebody who has followed the Bolivarian process, in 2019, the most desirable, expectable, what would bet for is what I highlighted by you in the sense of having an agreement between Venezuelans, and that agreement has to be on the constitutional basis of the Bolivarian Constitution of 1999. And of course, in the middle of all of these confrontations, the way to stop a foreign intervention is found, which Colombia is in favor of taking part in that, indicates that is a country like an agent of the empire's wishes, then no to that foreign intervention, and Venezuelans must solve the problem, as you tell, on the basis of the Constitution.
Thank you very much, Medófilo.
Thanks to you two for inviting me.
Well, like this, we come to the end of this from Caracas, when we spoke with Medófilo Medina, who is a historian from Colombia, with whom we spoke about Venezuela, about Colombia, about the process led throughout Latin America by Simón Bolívar, and like we always say with us. Thank you very much.